Serbian war criminal news now. And you might remember Radovan Karadzic. He was the former Bosnian Serb leader who was arrested 4 years ago after 13 years on the run. It was thought that he'd been in hiding all that time, whereas in fact he'd just grown a huge white beard and was writing poetry and working openly as a doctor of alternative medicine under the false name Dragan Dabic. Now, I know that sounds a lot more like the plot line to a daytime soap opera than an important piece of European history.
What soap operas do you watch now, John?
Pretty weird ones, Andy.
You need to get back onto Neighbours.
Oh, they're pretty good over here. It's a lot of Serbian warlords turning up all the time. Karadzic faces 10 charges of genocide and crimes against humanity, including the Srebrenica massacre, where 7,000 Bosniak men and boys were killed, and the siege of Sarajevo, where more than 12,000 civilians died. So, how do you respond to a rap sheet like that, Andy? Do you just admit everything and throw yourself at the mercy of The Hague? Do you desperately try to quickly squeeze out another massive beard from your face and then say, oh, I'm sorry, I think you have the wrong man. I'm Dr. Dragan Dabic. Can I interest you in some echinacea oil? Well, he did neither of these things, Andy. Instead, at the start of his war crimes trial at The Hague, he launched into a lengthy personal statement where he took the court on a fascinating journey into the mind of a maniac. He argued that he should be rewarded for reducing suffering, not accused of carrying out war crimes. And I think this might make him the first person to turn up to a war crimes tribunal and attempt to flip it on its head by demanding gratitude and a reward.
That's ballsy. Running the, what, me, Gov? No, I'm just a regular guy defence. Which, that is, as you say, that's 10 different charges ranging from inhumane acts to full-on genocide, from murder to taking EPO during the 2003 Tour de France. Oh no, I'm getting confused now. Anyway, but he is a hard man to warm to as a neutral, John. I think that's fair to say. The former poet and author of the best-selling vegetarian food preparation guide, Radovan's Carrot Tips.
Okay, there's a one-off, Andy, but that is very good.
Thank you, John.
Now, he went on to say, he really did try to show a different side to him. He went on to say that he was a mild man, a tolerant man, with a great capacity to understand others. That sounds more like a dating profile than the defence at a war crimes trial. Was there a horrible mix-up, Andy? Has eHarmony now received a dating profile description from him with an 18-page denial of having anything to do with massacring an entire town? Because if that's true, it would be very interesting to see the dating matches they came back to for him with a profile like that.
I think he'd end up with Kim Kardashian. That's my prediction. What a TV show!
In hell.
Well, what a TV show that would make, John.
He argued that he'd been responsible for great restraint during the war, taking the jazz defence, basically. Don't listen to the war crimes I committed, listen to the war crimes I did not commit. He also criticised media coverage of the war as biased and disputed the official number of the victims of the war, saying that the true figure was 3 to 4 times less. But just for some mathematical context there, official figures state that more than 100,000 people were killed during that war. So even if Karadzic's maths were true, which they're not, he would still be claiming the deaths of over 25,000 people. That's not so much pleading innocent as it is pleading less guilty.
As you say, he claimed he was a tolerant man, and I guess looking at the evidence, it does suggest that what he was tolerant of was genocide. And and arguably, you have to be even more tolerant to tolerate something as appalling as that.
Right.
So, actually, I guess he could argue... he's probably more tolerant than Jesus. I think that's a strong defence. That's a very strong defence.
I wouldn't be surprised if that exact sentiment came out of his hairy face at some point during this trial. Because he also said that every shell that had fallen on Sarajevo, I quote, hurt me personally. Although, to be fair, not quite as much as it hurt the people those shells actually fell on. And finally, he argued that while some people had clearly been killed, he said, and again I quote, we also saw android mannequins being thrown onto trucks, creating this show for the world. That's his defence, Andy, that some of the dead bodies were actually android mannequins. Did his defence lawyer then proceed to throw themselves through a window at that point? And did Karadzic say, oh, don't worry about it, he's not actually dead, he was just an animatronic blow-up doll? I'm telling you, it is such a shame that he's a week late for the Brass Balls update, Andy, because he's a ball-worthy nominee.
He said that he'd done everything within human power to avoid the war and to reduce human suffering, before thinking about it for a couple of seconds and adding, hang on, maybe not quite everything. Maybe I could have tried to stop my forces carrying out mass slaughter, and maybe I could have not done absolutely nothing to stop the war from kicking off. So when I say everything within human power, I mean everything within the human power of a human with no power who has been dead for several hundred years and lived in a cave all his life and never met anyone else. I'm innocent, Judge. I'm innocent.